Nice. So we have 29 attendees and one dog with us tonight. Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Scott Smith. I serve as the superintendent for Cedar Springs Public Schools. With me tonight, I'll let the team just start. Jen, do you want to go first?
Sure. I'm Jen Haberling, and I serve as the Director of Academic Services.
I'll go next.
Oh, go ahead, Stacy.
I'm Stacy Boswell. I'm the Director of Special Ed and Student Services.
Perfect. Chris?
Chris LaHaye, I'm the Chief Financial Officer.
And Matt?
And I'm Matt Blood. I'm Director of Human and Community Services.
Perfect. Well, we thank you so much for joining us this evening. This is one of those things. Oh, and last but not least, Ken. Oh, sorry. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, there we are. I'm back. Finally. Sorry, everybody, I'm late. I'm Ken Simon, Director of Facilities and Operations for the schools.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ken. So we have 30 people on the line with us tonight. And so we'll get started right away. Our goal, our focus for this evening is just to give parents and community members an opportunity to ask questions in regard to really where we are as a district. You can ask things about academics, you can ask things about student services, you can ask things about facilities, our budget, you can ask things about our COVID response, our partnerships with the Kent County Health Department or Spectrum Health. You can ask questions about the bond proposal, anything that you are interested in. We would love to engage with community members. And so there's a little tab down at the bottom of your screen that's a Q&A feature. If you just click on that, you'll be able to submit your questions into the chat box, and then we'll respond to your questions as we go. I'm also recording this webinar, and so we'll be able to share it with other community members who were not able to join us this evening. So we do have a set of questions that we'll get started with, but please, if you have additional questions, utilize that Q&A portion in the bottom, or you can submit a question using the chat feature as well. So we will get started. The first question, how does the Kent County Health Department determine who the close contacts are when a positive COVID-19 case occurs at school? Matt Blood, can you take that, please?
You bet. It's a little bit, it's going to vary from case to case. And so, for instance, if we get contacted by a parent saying that their student has been confirmed positive for COVID-19, school districts are required to report that to the county. And the way that we do that is through filling out a spreadsheet that is provided by the county with close contact information on there. We will talk with the individual to determine who might have been some of their close contacts based on being within 6 feet for a cumulative time of 15 minutes or more. That could be at outdoor events, it could be in the lunchroom, it could be anywhere, on the bus, wherever. But we'll also be, the school administrators will also be in contact with their teachers to see the seating charts and be able to determine where there are students who possibly could be considered close contact. We report that all to the county health department. All of this investigation is done with protecting the privacy and the identity of the students. And then we then share that with the health department to then continue the investigation to determine all of the close contacts that they might have had outside of school and so forth. There have been instances where we identify someone and as a close contact and later find out that that was inaccurate, and we have made changes to that as well. You know, it's not easy work because we're kind of going off of what we kind of know with where they and listening, but there are times where it's like, oh yeah, I guess that wasn't someone that was close to me, and so forth on that, and we've had to make some changes. I guess that's good news for those people that were identified earlier. Now they're able to go to school and so forth.
Perfect. Thank
I
you,
hope
Matt.
that answers it.
No, thank you so much. So the next question, how are online learners measuring up to in-person learners? And I'm wondering maybe if Stacy and Jen can take that one.
Sure, with that one. Our online learners are being measured with the same tools that we're using with our in-person learners for some benchmark assessments. And we're in the process of collecting and analyzing that data at this time. One of the things that we've discovered is that it's a little bit difficult to have a valid testing environment when students are testing at home. And often that is a result of families wanting to be helpful to their students. And so our data looks a little bit skewed right now. It looks like our online learners are 98% of them are scoring above where we would expect them to be. And that's not true of our in-person learners. So we know we have some work to do on gathering more valid data. Another measure that we're using is attendance, and our online learners at this time, the attendance data that we are collecting shows that they are successfully accessing the content that we are providing for them, with about 100% of the students participating in their classes.
Stacy, are you seeing anything from a director of student services perspective that could also maybe speak to how special ed students are engaging in their content and getting support?
Sure. So we have regional online virtual classes. We have some early childhood online classes. We're seeing a lot of engagement. I saw some pictures of a little one engaging in some really cool science experiments at home. And we have a lot of engagement happening. We see students who want to be at home and want to engage at home, and parents asking some really good questions. So from all of our special ed teachers and their interactions and really utilizing those relationships, those students are reaching out, those parents are reaching out, and that engagement is really high.
Perfect. Thank you, Stacy. The next question is for Jen and for Matt. Will elementary class sizes change with the new semester?
So that is also a tricky data analysis question, and it will really depend on the will of our families and what will serve their needs best in terms of health and safety and academic opportunities. We certainly hope to keep our class sizes as they are and maybe adjust some staffing depending on how the numbers look. And Matt may have more to add than I say.
Yeah, actually, it sort of addresses a later question. I'll just read that question to you now. It is really too soon to assess our online situations and make a decision by October for things that will be happening in January. Is there any consideration for parents dealing with this and moving the date later? And that kind of ties into class size, that class size question. And that is something that it's a very complicated thing to try. I mean, it's very complex to determine scheduling and planning for sections, class sizes, and the materials, the training, staffing, all of that kind of ties into all of this. And it really is kind of a chain reaction. It's not something that we can just do all at once. And so one thing has to be complete before we can move on to the next thing and so forth. And that's why we decided to get out ahead of it, to do the survey now so that we can have time to really digest it and develop a plan for second semester. And getting all the pieces to fall into place, really, we need to start sooner so that we can be ready for the second semester. That's going to lead to decisions that are going to really be relevant to that class size. And we won't know that until we have that data from the survey. We understand, and we've been contacted by people, and we really do understand and feel for people, and in wanting to make the right decision for their children. And we are right now listening and trying to find solutions that might be able to support that, and yet be able to support, especially at the secondary level, to be able to support the need for scheduling with all the sections and the, it's quite a monster to deal with that secondary schedule. So to be continued, I think, with that, but right now, October 23rd is that deadline, but perhaps there's some way that we can still support families to be able to make those decisions later, that is going to be best fit for their children.
Mhm. And just as an example from our experience in the fall, when ordering materials and taking care of technology needs, we learned very quickly that we aren't the only school in the world that's dealing with something like this. And therefore, many of the things that we were ordering in July and August weren't available right away for us, even as we began school in September. And I've heard from some of my colleagues in other districts that technology that they ordered in July and August still won't be available until January in many cases. So the ordering process is pretty intense. And like Matt said, it is a chain reaction. One thing follows another. So knowing those numbers helps us to be as best prepared as we can and make the right choices about how we're using our resources.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. The next question is one that I'll take. It's, what is the criteria that the district will use to determine the necessity to go remote? That is a great question. I meet weekly with the Kent County Health Department on Wednesday afternoons at 4 o'clock. And then I also have a weekly meeting on Friday afternoons at 2 p.m. with members of the Spectrum Health team. We will be really relying on the Kent County Health Department whenever we have to make a decision in regard to closing school related to COVID-19 cases. And so they'll be doing an extensive amount of review of the data. And then based on their recommendation, we will move forward with action on our end. So really it's not as easy as making a snow day call, if that's an easy thing. We'll really be relying on the data and the trends from the Kent County Health Department to make that call. There's no set number, but we'll definitely be utilizing that partnership to make a good decision to keep our students and our staff as safe as we can. The next question is a follow-up to Matt's earlier question. I thought if you had symptoms, you could get tested for COVID-19, and if it was negative, you could return to school, especially if you have no known contact with a positive case in the last 2 weeks. Has that changed?
And so that is correct. What they're called is concerning symptoms. So you are not positive for COVID because you might have allergies, you might have some other health condition that's going on. And so based on the algorithm that the county has provided for schools, you are considered a concerning case, or you have concerning symptoms if you have one, either a new cough or a loss of taste or smell, or you have two of the others. And if you have two of the others, then you're considered a concerning case and you have to stay home until one of the two things occur. And so you could either get a alternative diagnosis from your doctor that explains that it's not COVID related, it's documented, you come to school. Or if you're being tested for COVID, you receive a negative test result. As soon as you have that, you bring that to school and you're able to come back to school because it's not COVID, it's something else. And your symptoms have improved and you're fever free for 24 hours for that. So you are correct. That is how we operate with that.
Perfect. Thanks for that question. Ken Simon, are the classrooms fogged each night, meaning a disinfectant is sprayed in them after everyone leaves?
Well, if we want to go definition of fogged, no, they're not fogged every night. What classrooms are done is we clean them at the high school and the middle school level with disinfectant between each and every hour, and we clean them at the end of the day. The elementaries clean their desks with a disinfectant every night at the end of the day. Then our custodial crew will come through and they will then wash the desk later on in the day, which takes off that sticky residue that can be left behind from a disinfectant. But if we do have cases that are positive, or any concern in the classroom, those classrooms are fogged. We use a Clorox 360 machine to do that.
Perfect. Ken, you mentioned both cleaning and disinfecting. Can you talk about the differences between those two operations or those two things?
I sure can. If a true disinfecting, if we fog, we're allowing the chemical to sit on the furniture or the walls or wherever we're fogging for a determined amount of time that it takes to kill the virus. That can range from different chemicals, anywhere from 1 minute to 10 minutes. We are cleaning our desks with a disinfectant after every class per the roadmap, so that we are trying to do two things. One is cleaning it. Cleaning it will take off the majority of the germs and the viruses. The residual of the disinfectant will hopefully kill off what's left. And then at the end of the night, we are washing those desks, which is cleaning them totally off. So the difference between cleaning is we clean it, we wipe it, we take the dirt and excess material off, and the disinfectant, it has to remain on there for a certain amount of time.
Perfect. Thank you. The next question is not a COVID-19 question, so that's a shocker. But someone's wondering how the bond work is coming along. Chris, I'm wondering if you'd like to address that. Talk a little bit about some of the work that we've done so far, and then what's some of the first projects that are going to be on the line as far as getting our attention.
Yeah, thanks for getting me off the bench there. I appreciate it. I saw that one pop up and I thought, oh, hey, I might be able to get in and answer a question. So I appreciate that. Yeah, Superintendent Smith, myself, and Ken Simon, we are meeting several times each week, actually, with our architects and engineers at GMB and with the team at Triangle Construction. We're in the planning phases of a couple different projects right now, just to make sure we incorporated everyone's ideas. We've got stakeholder groups from each building that we're working on, just to really, thought process the best way to go about each project. So you'll start to see the work, breaking ground probably sometime early next year in the springtime. And the ones that we're focusing on right now are at Cedar View, where we'll have a new secure entryway and some cool, great spaces there. Our high school edition will be starting next year as well. And then we've met to discuss the new parking lot and paving entryway projects at the middle school. So those are the first ones you're going to see. And yeah, it's a little bit behind the scenes right now, but work has begun. So we're very excited.
Ken, can you piggyback up on that and follow up in terms of how the availability of some mechanical systems and equipment are going to impact our timelines?
Most definitely. The after effect of the COVID crisis has put us into a stage of production that is way behind. So air conditionings, mechanical supplies are not being manufactured, or were not being manufactured on a timely manner. So the need for those increased and the supply went down. Therefore, it's reduced it way back. So we are looking at big delays right now when we order anything mechanically to work with our construction. So, whoops, hit the button. With that in mind, we're looking at that also to see how far in advance we're going to have to order these things in order to get them in.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll take the next question. It's when will Cherry Health, the Cherry Health Center on campus, have COVID testing available? Hopefully that's going to happen soon. So Cedar Springs Public Schools has a very unique partnership with Cherry Health, and we're very thankful for that. Cherry Health provides some great services for families in our community, but the pandemic has impacted the types and quantity of services that they're able to provide. So Cherry Health is only open a certain set number of days per week, and they can their services are limited. Before they were serving any individuals within the community. Now that service group has been narrowed down to just students ages 5 through 18. So what we are going to be doing is utilizing Cherry Health as a resource for families. Cherry Health will actually not do the actual testing. What Cherry Health will do is work with a family to provide them with a coupon of sorts to be able to go and utilize the testing center and the facilities that Spectrum Health has down on 10 Mile, adjacent to the Meyer campus, just east of 131. And so once the Cherry Health team meets with the family and they're doing all of their contacts telehealth, so you'd meet with them virtually, then they would provide you with an opportunity to jump right into the line with the Spectrum Health team, get your tests done, and get your results back within a 24 to 48 hour window, which is really exciting. Spectrum continues to work hard to make sure that they're getting results back as quickly as possible to people who are getting tested. And so we do have that partnership with Cherry Health. It's just going to look a little bit different in the 2020-2021 school year than what it has looked in the past. But we still really appreciate the work that they do for us. The next question is Cedar Springs Public Schools planning to continue to follow the My Safe Schools, Michigan's 2020-2021 Return to School Roadmap? We are still continuing to use that work as a guideline. However, really what our district is following is our Return to Learn plan that the Board of Education approved back on August 14. And so that document really is the document that's guiding our work. Chris and Jen worked very hard to develop the language in our plan so that it followed the roadmap. We use the roadmap as a baseline for much of that plan. But really, at this point, we're using the plan that was approved by the board and not really using the roadmap as a hard artifact. Jen, do you want to talk a little bit about the extended learning plan that we're now following as far as guidelines for our practice?
Sure. So back in late August, we were given some legislation to follow that asks us to report monthly to the Board of Education our attendance and our progress toward academic goals. So we are using iReady as our measure of those academic goals. And we are required to report them at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. We are also going to do a mid-year goal because we think it's important to do some monitoring throughout the year to make sure that we're on track to the end of the year goal. And we'll also be using the attendance data to report to the board. And then the public, of course, has the opportunity for public comment at any time during a board meeting. So really the extended COVID learning plan, as required by the legislation, asks us to make sure that we're checking in at board meetings and on the right track for what our community would like to be seeing and what we know will serve our students best in the long run academically.
Perfect. Thanks, Jen. Chris, I'm going to let you take the next one. So what has changed, if anything, regarding medical safety, for example, masks, hand washing, sanitizing, at Cedar Springs Public Schools as the result of the state Supreme Court's decision regarding the executive orders? This individual wants to make sure that their children will remain safe in the learning environment now that some of those protections have been rolled back. And Ken, maybe you can add in if there's some things that can enhance Chris's answer.
Yeah, this one kind of piggybacks off what you spoke about earlier, Scott, where we followed the Return to Learn plan to create our own district plan, which was board adopted on August 14th, as far as personal protective equipment and sanitizing and those hand washing and all those measures to make sure everyone is staying as safe as possible within the district. So when the governor's executive orders were rolled back, we are still following our board approved plan. So we really didn't skip a beat there in regards to the safety measures we started the year with. So if everybody remembers, that was kind of a funny little time where the executive orders were rolled back, but then the Department of Health and Human Services jumped right in and said, oh, we're still going to make sure that these are all upheld. The district didn't have to really react in any way because we have our Return to Learn plan, which is board adopted. So we're continuing to, and Ken is doing a great job of making sure that our hand sanitizer stands are filled and prepared. We have masks, we have PPE, and we're doing everything we can. Ken, anything to add there?
Well, as Chris was saying, nothing has changed. We still have all of our practices for social distancing, everybody wearing a mask while they're in. Um, so we're following all the safe procedures that we had in place to begin with. And I believe we're going to be just as safe as we were then.
Perfect. Hey, thank you both. The next question would be for Jen and Stacy, and Matt, perhaps. When with children returning in the second semester, will the structure of their days be changed? And so by that, I think the viewer is asking about, will we change from a 5-day a week in-person plan? Will we explore options for a hybrid plan? What is our vision for that second semester of learning for students?
So I'm glad to start that one out. Like Chris said, our plan has been approved by the Board of Education. So to make any changes to that plan, it would need to go before the Board of Education again. And that's not something that we have thought about doing. The research that we did this summer, starting in May and going all the way through to the present day, indicates that what our community wants and what's really best for the academic needs of our students is for them to be seeing their teacher regularly. And by regularly, we really think that's 5 days a week. So if we can do that safely with all the right health and safety measures in place, we would be excited to continue to do that. And that is in fact what our Borderproof plan is.
Perfect. Any other follow-ups on that? Fantastic, thank you. So the next question is a great one. When will 8th grade be moved to Red Hawk? You know, initially we were thinking that we would be able to move forward with renovation plans at Red Hawk so that we would be moving 8th graders over for the 2021-2022 school year, so next fall. We're still in the process of really taking a look at when that move makes the most sense. And so we've got a couple meetings on the calendar in the next couple of weeks. So I would anticipate that having more clarity around that issue very soon. But it's looking like more, it will be made, that move will be timed more on what makes sense from an academic perspective versus what makes sense from a construction perspective. Because it's looking like the timing of that Red Hawk project will be a little bit later than what we initially anticipated, because as Ken said earlier, we don't have, you know, we're going to have a hard time getting some of the materials that we were looking for initially. And so really expect more clarity around that 8th grade move. And, you know, when the 8th grade moves to Red Hawk, then the 6th grade moves over to the middle school. And so expect more clarity around that in the next couple of weeks or the next month. But we know that there's going to need to be a great deal of planning around any of those changes. And so that's not something that we're going to just jump into without a lot of thought and input from staff and parents and students for that matter, as we look to make that change. The next question, my middle schooler's backpack is so heavy. It would be nice if they could have more time to exchange things at their lockers. The suggestion is perhaps they could go alphabetically, or maybe you could go within a specific class. Ken, as you've been leading the work around creating our safe protocols, do you want to talk a little bit about the use of backpacks, both at the middle school and at the high school, in regard to lockers, crowding, and just that whole student flow?
Certainly. The whole idea behind the backpacks and having everybody take the stuff with you is point number one is we had to keep people from congregating, the students from congregating, and the hallways and the lockers are so close together that kids would be just basically too close to each other for too long of a time with this locker situation. The other aspect of that is to make sure that the students have with them at all times all of the materials that they need if they were going to have school canceled for any reason. So the student basically is carrying everything they need at any one time to walk out the door. And if we had to go to remote learning, they're able to do that and accomplish that right away.
Perfect. Thanks, Ken. Another great question. Will board meetings be virtual again to make them easier to attend as parents and community members? So the last board meeting, we did meet in person, but we also had the meeting in a Zoom format as well. And so, you know, the whole purpose of the board meetings is to provide our community with transparent access to the conversations and things that the board is reviewing. And so the vision that we have right now is going to be to continue to follow the guidelines that are set forth by the state of Michigan, which has provided us with the opportunity now to meet virtually again. There was a temporary window where as the governor's orders, the executive orders were declared unconstitutional. One of those executive orders was to allow boards of education to meet virtually instead of in person. And so the board will be talking about the format that they want to use moving forward at their next board meeting work session, which will also be available for you to view through Zoom. And so we want to work hard to make sure that you've got as much access to that information as possible. But ultimately, that will be a decision that the Board of Education makes. The next question is, as the cold and flu season approaches, what is your plan to ensure that students and staff with symptoms do not enter our buildings? Matt, can you take that one and talk just a little bit about the screening protocols?
Sure.
Thank you.
So, you know, what we have been doing is having data across the county that's showing that it is helping to mitigate the spread. And that is social distancing, that's wearing masks, that's washing hands, disinfecting, and so forth. A lot of the cases that we're seeing are cases that have happened outside in the community, more than occurring in the school itself. And that's kind of what our plan will continue to be until we seek other guidance that shows otherwise. But what we're doing with screening is we have self-screening. That's part of that return to school plan, is that staff have to fill out a health screener every day, answering just a few questions and temperature checks. And we ask that parents and students follow that same thing. And that's just asking, do you feel feverish? Do you have a temperature that's over 100.4? And do you have any of these symptoms? Have you been around someone who has been confirmed case of COVID in the last 2 weeks, and so forth? And that has been working rather well. We've had a number of calls from families who are asking questions about, should my student stay home because of this? And then we give them the answer of, yes, you should stay home for 10 days or a negative test or anything, like that. So that has been working very well. We do know that flu season is starting to ramp up. So that is something that we hope to see actually impacted because of our measures to protect from spreading of COVID, is also protecting from the spread of flu on that.
Perfect. Hey, thank you, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
The next question is for Ken and Chris. With Governor Whitmer's executive orders being declared invalid, what guidelines are we using to monitor participation and attendance at sporting events?
Currently, right now, we are following the same guidelines that were set out right at the end of her executive orders, which the Department of Health and Human Services issued again, which is we're limiting our capacities to our venues to 10% of what they hold. And we're supposed to be having the social distancing practices and masks being worn while competitors and visitors are in the stands. So it's the same thing that we were doing before, just that we're hoping that we get some cooperation from all of our fans as they walk into our facilities.
Chris, any follow-ups on that?
Yeah, just that's right on. But I would just also add, we'll continue to work with the Department of Health and Human Services as well as MHSAA just to make sure that, we're on top of it and following those guidelines as this pandemic progresses and changes. So.
Perfect. Thank you. Jen and Stacy, as students and staff quarantine, they are in and out of the classroom constantly, and it's difficult for everyone to plan ahead. Wouldn't remote learning allow for more consistency across the board?
So a couple different things come to mind for this one. Certainly it would allow for some consistency, but maybe not what's best for students in many cases. And so that's why we're giving parents the choice. If consistency is what you are desiring, then certainly you have the choice to choose online fully, and we would support that if that's what you believe is best for your student. We also spent quite a bit of time putting Canvas, a learning management system, in place to help with just exactly this scenario that we knew would be happening, which was people in and out. And, I know everyone has heard this is a year unlike any other, and hopefully we will never have to have another year like this. But we are doing our best to adjust to those variable conditions as they change. And we are glad to hear from our families about the different situations they have, that we might work to make it as good as we can given those constraints.
Perfect. Thank you. For Chris LaHaye, an attendance question: will the limit of 10 absences be enforced now that we are to keep our students home for all illnesses?
Yeah. So the name of the game with coronavirus and COVID-19 is flexibility, right? And so, I think the original intent of that guideline was to ensure that students didn't fall too far behind. And so the great thing is that we have added things such as Canvas and a lot of different remote learning options, Chromebooks, one-to-one Chromebooks for 612 students to help prevent students from falling too far behind because of most likely an increased number of absences. So the one thing we have done is added a new attendance code in PowerSchool. In the past, if you call up the office and say, I'd like to excuse my student today, the secretary or whoever you speak to would input that as an excused absence. So this year we've created a code. It's EC. It's excused for COVID reasons. So all of those symptoms that Matt Blood spoke about earlier in the phone call here, that you would excuse your students for related to COVID, that's going to go in as an EC now, okay, to provide some flexibility so that when we're looking back on those attendance reports, that there's some leniency there. Because if you've got a quarantine for 14 days, you're already going to be at your 10 absences. And so hopefully we have everything in place to not let your student fall too far behind, but also communicate easily, hey, these were excused absences because of COVID. So long answer. Short answer is no, we're going to be flexible and try to work with you as well as we can.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris. Matt, the next question is for you from a staffing perspective. Will our online students keep their current teacher for next semester?
That's kind of a tough question to answer because we have to know the data. We have to know what the interest is for each platform, whether they're going to be online or they're going to be in person. And we do our staffing based off of that as well. Now, obviously, we want to limit the amount of disruption that there could exist because of one group of students, now their teacher is now teaching online and they were in person, and now where do they go? Because they're going to be in person, we might have to move them to another classroom based on class sizes and all of that, or vice versa. And so to say you're going to stay with your same teacher and online, it's really going to be determined based off of the number of students that we have in each program and how many teachers we want to provide the smallest number of students per teacher as possible so that we can provide as much instructional support that we can for those students. So I would love to be able to say yes, definitely, or no, definitely, but really it's going to depend on what we find with the survey.
But to Matt's point, we really will work hard. We know
Yeah.
that consistency is what's most important for our students, and having that relationship with their teacher is very important to them being successful over the course of the school year. And so we want to disrupt things as least as we can
Yeah.
in that case.
For sure.
Perfect. Thank you. This next question is a big one, so I'm going to try and break it down. So what is the benchmark number that will cause the district to go virtual? How many cases? It would be great to have a district-wide dashboard on the district website to see how many cases we currently have in the district. Is this something the district is open to being transparent on? How many cases have we had? And then how many current positive cases do we have? So I'll go first and talk a little bit about the dashboard, and then I'll let Chris and Matt jump in terms of supporting with the number of current cases and the number of cases that we've had. So we talked a little bit about already, is there a benchmark number that will cause the district to go virtual? We don't have a specific number in mind. Rather, we'll be looking to the Kent County Health Department to provide us with direction in terms of what we can do best on our end to reduce the spread of COVID-19 from student to student in our buildings. Like Jen, I think it was Jen that said, we've had very few cases transmitted based on Kent County Health Department data from student to student or from student to staff or from staff to student in the classroom. The bulk of the transmissions based on the Kent County Health Department's contact tracing data is occurring in one of two spaces. So first, the transmissions are occurring within family functions. So they're being passed from a parent to a student or from a student to a grandparent. So they're transmitting the virus within the family, within the tight family unit. And that's why it's so important that when an individual presents themselves with symptoms, gets a positive test, that the other members of that family also must quarantine for that 14-day window. That just makes sure that we stop the spread of that virus from within the members of that family group. In terms of the how many cases, the dashboard piece, we do have a dashboard on our website. The dashboard is something that all districts in Kent County are using. We're using the same data that's provided by the Kent County Health Department. The Kent County Health Department started with a very robust dashboard with multiple data points that they were tracking, but they were updating that dashboard one time per week because of all of the points that they were reviewing. They've now come back and they're working with all the districts in Kent County. We have a much less robust dashboard. However, it's updated daily. And so we do have a dashboard. It is, while Matt and Chris are sharing any other information around current case data, I'll pull it up and then I'll share my screen real quick and show everyone where to look for that current daily update.
So it seems like there's a lot of cases, and a lot of it is what we talked about earlier with concerning symptoms that students are sent home for or that their siblings are sent home for because they are in the same household, and then we get a negative test and they're back in school. And but we are starting to see some cases where people are having to quarantine because they're in close contact with someone who was a confirmed COVID positive case on that. As far as the confirmed COVID cases in our district, we've had 7 total. 3 staff and 4 students.
Perfect. So thank you, Matt. So where you'll find that data. So if you go to, let me share my screen real quick. So if you go to the Cedar Springs Public Schools website, which is csredhawks.org, and you go to the upper left-hand corner of the screen under CSPS COVID-19 response information. If you click on that tab, the first tab that you'll come to is COVID-19 protocols and reporting. If you click on that, then it takes you to this screen, and you can go down, and the very first tab that you can review is the Kent ISD/district level COVID-19 reporting dashboard. It's updated. It says it's updated each Monday by 5 o'clock, but now know that that's updated daily. So when you click on that link, it takes you to the Kent ISD COVID-19 school dashboard. You can see that it was updated on the 19th of October. So that was today. If you go over here to the right-hand column or right-hand side of the screen, you can go to this drop-down menu. You can see all of the school districts in Kent County that have had a positive case. And so when you go to Cedar Springs Public Schools and click on that tab, you'll see that, as Matt said, we've had a total of 7 cases. So the first case occurred back on 9/14. It was at the Cedar Springs Middle School. Then a second case on 9/27 at the Cedar Springs Middle School. We had 1 case positive at Red Hawk Elementary on the 1st of October. We had 1 student test positive on the 2nd of October at the high school. We've had a student test positive on the 13th of October at the high school, 1 at Beach Elementary School on the 14th of October, and then a student at Cedar View Elementary School testing positive on the 15th. So you'll see that that's a very up-to-date website and provides us with real-time data as far as COVID-19 cases, not only in Cedar Springs, but throughout the county. You'll also see that there are several other resources that you can refer to that are linked on our website. The Kent County ISD COVID-19 website is a great place to go, particularly if you're looking for key information in regard to cases around the county. So if you are really intrigued about data, this website is a phenomenal place. Like I said earlier, we meet monthly with the Kent County, or weekly, sorry, with the Kent County Health Department. And at each of those meetings, they review the data on this website. And it's been fascinating to watch the trends and the number of cases change over the last few weeks. And unfortunately, the truth is, we're headed in the wrong direction based on the data. So between both the Kent County Health Department and the Spectrum Health team, what we're seeing is an increase in the positivity rates of tests that are being done. And we're also seeing an uptick in the number of cases throughout the county. Fortunately, again, as we've mentioned, they're not tracing these cases and the transmissions back to classrooms or back to schools. Rather, they're tracing the transmission of cases to family events, but they're also tracking the transmission of the virus back to large gatherings of high school and college age students. And so, they're tracking those cases back to those large homecoming barn parties that families are having for their kids to try and give them that normal school experience. And that's a great, I appreciate the fact that parents want to do that and want to provide that for their kids, but those types of events are the things that are being those super spreader events. And that's where we really need to partner with our families to help us keep this thing under wraps. families have said repeatedly they want their kids in school. We want that too. Number one, we know that is going to be what's going to help us provide learning opportunities for students that are meaningful and that are robust. But in order for us to do it, we can't do it alone. We need the help of parents. And the Kent County Superintendents put together a letter that was drafted over the weekend, just asking parents throughout the county to partner with us and help mitigate the spread of this blasted virus. And so I'll be sending that communication out to Cedar Springs Public Schools families tonight via school messenger. But just take a look at that memo and just help continue to support the efforts to keep our students and our staffs safe, so that we can continue forward over the long haul with our efforts to continue to teach our students during a global pandemic. So we're going to jump back in. We've got a couple questions left, and I'm going to let someone else on the screen grab the next question while I find the questions again.
I will be glad to grab that, Scott.
Thanks, Jen.
We have one comment that says, we've been doing online learning and it is working out pretty well, except the video lessons take forever to load. As an example, 30 minutes for a 5-minute video sometimes. Can this be addressed, such as using a different platform than Loom? That's certainly something that we can take to our tech team and ask them to help problem solve that and see if there might be a better solution that would serve our families best. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Chris, I don't know if you have anything to add from a tech perspective.
Yeah, well, just from a standpoint of Loom, I actually spoke with a parent last week who voiced the same concern. And prior to that, admittedly, I'd never heard of Loom. So I'm not, I think it's one of many platforms that our teachers seem to be using. Yeah, we'll follow up and see if there's a way to work around that, or maybe there is something that takes lower bandwidth. But yeah, there's so much new learning with all of this technology. We'll do the best we can and let you know.
We certainly will. And then the next question, if we decide to send them to school and harsher restrictions are enforced, can we pull them out and do online schooling? So this is one that speaks to something that Matt and I have already talked about a bit. That decision, whether to be in person or online, actually takes quite a bit more than just one parent saying, we'd like to switch. Because of the resources that we're allocating and the way that we have to purchase materials, even technical things like licenses and different digital tools that we're using, it's not a real quick and easy slide them into online. In addition to that, it is a different set of, it's a different organization for how the material is flowing through the year. And so where students are in person in a classroom may not be exactly where they are in their online journey. So it makes a little bit of a gap or some holes for students that are a little bit more difficult to overcome. In terms of harsher restrictions, I don't think we see anything different coming down the pike than what we currently have. I could be wrong. Ken Simon might be the expert in that. But certainly the plan that we have follows all of the safety requirements, all the way down to the phases that would require us to be not in person again. So we really do have a great system for taking care of health and safety.
All right. Well, we have reached that point where there are no more questions on the list. And there are no more questions in the Q&A feature. And so if you have any other questions, please type them in now, or just give us a call. Reach out to us via email or by phone, and we'll jump on your question right away and get you the information that you need so that you can best partner with us in the support of our working hard to make sure that your students maximize their experience this year as members of the Red Hawk family. This was a new thing for us this evening. We hope that you found this to be beneficial. These are really easy for us to do. And so we'd like to build more of these in and provide them on a monthly basis, if that helps families. Again, just build that partnership. Hopefully we'll reach a point in time when we don't ask 97% of the questions around a global pandemic, and we can talk about other issues related to the district and the community. But hopefully you found this to be super helpful, and we just appreciate the fact that so many of you were willing to take time out of your Monday night to come in and tune in and get some information about the district. Again, we recorded this, so we'll be posting it online, and we'll get that out as early as tomorrow. But hey, we just thank you for partnering with us in our efforts to support our Red Hawks and our community. And we wish you the best. And if there is ever anything that you need, please don't hesitate to reach out. There's one more quick question. What will early middle college look like for seniors who want to switch to online? And it looks like Jen just answered that in the chat. And so that should be all set. So if there are no other questions, I'm going to close this out, let everyone get back to their fun things of whatever they do on a kind of a rainy Monday night in Cedar Springs. We wish you really well. Thanks so much for partnering with us. Go Red Hawks.